Here are a few moral stories associated with Buddha that convey deep lessons on compassion, kindness, and wisdom. 1. The story of Angulimala. Angulimala was a ruthless bandit who wore a necklace of fingers he had cut off from his victims. When he encountered Buddha, he tried to attack him, but Buddha calmly continued walking. Angulimala shouted at him to stop, but Buddha replied, "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It's you who have not stopped." Confused, Angulimala asked what he meant, and Buddha explained that he had stopped his mind from evil and violence, whereas Angulimala had not. Moved by Buddha's words, Angulimala renounced his violent ways and became a devoted monk. Moral: it's never too late to change and walk on the path of non-violence and compassion. 2. The blind men and the elephant. A group of blind men heard about an elephant and wanted to understand what it was like. Each touched a different part of the elephant. One touched the leg and said the elephant was like a tree trunk, another touched the ear and said it was like a fan, and another touched the tail and said it was like a rope. They argued fiercely, each believing their perspective was the whole truth. Buddha intervened and explained that each man was only partially right, and that they must understand the whole picture to see the truth. Moral: truth is often multifaceted, and one must be open-minded to understand it fully. 3. The story of Kisa Gautami. Kisa Gautami, a young woman, lost her only child and was devastated. She went to Buddha, seeking a way to bring her child back to life. Buddha compassionately told her to bring a handful of mustard seeds from a house where no one had ever died. She went from house to house, but every family had experienced loss. She realized death is a natural part of life. She returned to Buddha and understood his teaching on impermanence. Moral: suffering is a part of life, and understanding impermanence can help us overcome grief. 4. The monk and the scorpion. One day, a monk saw a scorpion drowning in a river. He immediately reached out and saved it, but the scorpion stung him. A passerby asked why he would save the scorpion if it stings him. The monk replied, "Just as it is in the nature of the scorpion to sting, it is in my nature to save." Moral: one should act according to their nature of kindness and compassion, irrespective of how others behave. 5. The mustard seed story. Once, a woman named Gautami lost her child and went to Buddha, pleading for a way to bring her child back. Buddha instructed her to bring a mustard seed from a household where no one had ever died. As she searched from house to house, she realized every family had faced the death of a loved one, helping her understand that death is a universal experience. She returned to Buddha, gained insight, and eventually found peace. Moral: death and suffering are inevitable. Understanding this helps one develop acceptance and peace. These stories illustrate Buddha's teachings on compassion, acceptance, non-violence, and understanding the nature of reality. Here are a few more inspiring moral stories from the life of Buddha that highlight his teachings on mindfulness, compassion, and inner peace. 6. The story of the two arrows. Buddha once explained the concept of two arrows of suffering. When a person is struck by a metaphorical first arrow, painful life experiences such as loss, illness, or misfortune, it causes unavoidable suffering. The second arrow is how we respond to the first, with anger, resistance, or negative thoughts. This second arrow, which we inflict upon ourselves, causes additional suffering. Moral: while pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Our response to pain determines how much we suffer. 7. The Monkey and the Moon. One night, a group of monkeys saw the reflection of the moon in a well and believed it had fallen in. The leader of the monkeys decided to rescue the moon by forming a chain, each monkey holding the tail of another. As they reached down, the branch broke, and they all fell into the well. Buddha explained to his disciples that just like the monkeys, people often chase illusions and suffer because they don't see things as they truly are. Moral: chasing illusions can lead to suffering. True happiness comes from understanding reality as it is. 8. The tale of the mustard seed. A woman, stricken with grief over the death of her child, approached Buddha, asking for a miracle to bring her child back to life. Buddha told her to bring him a mustard seed from a house that had never known death. She went from house to house, only to find that every home had experienced loss. She understood that death is universal, and she found solace in knowing she was not alone in her grief. Moral: suffering is a shared human experience, and understanding this can bring comfort and peace. 9. The angry man. One day, a man came to Buddha and started shouting and insulting him. Buddha remained calm and asked, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "To the one who offered it." Buddha said, "I do not accept your insults, so they remain with you." The man realized the futility of his anger and apologized. Moral: anger harms the one who harbors it more than the one it is directed toward. Learning to let go of anger leads to peace. 10. The raft parable. Buddha once told a story of a man who built a raft to cross a river. After crossing, he continued to carry the raft on his back even though it was no longer needed. Buddha used this parable to explain that his teachings, Dharma, are like the raft. They are tools to reach enlightenment but should not be clung to once they have served their purpose. Moral: clinging to anything, even to good teachings, can become an obstacle. Letting go when the time is right is essential for freedom. 11. The poisoned arrow. A man was struck by a poisoned arrow, and his family wanted to immediately call a doctor to remove it. However, the man insisted on first knowing who shot the arrow, his family background, why he shot it, and other irrelevant details. Buddha used this story to teach that when faced with suffering or problems, we should focus on resolving them rather than getting caught up in unnecessary questions. Moral: focus on practical solutions to problems rather than getting lost in irrelevant details or questions. These stories serve as timeless reminders of how to live a life full of compassion, wisdom, and mindfulness. They offer practical guidance on overcoming suffering and finding peace within oneself.